Good, we are hitting the hour, so let's actually get on going on the community call. So welcome everybody, this is the September 2017 community call for SharePoint Patterns and Practices, also known as the SharePoint Dev ecosystem. And just to clarify that one, probably, I'm not sure if you followed up on our journey as a SharePoint BMP, we nowadays do communicate all of the SharePoint developer changes within the SharePoint development ecosystem in a monthly basis. So that includes all of the articles related on anything on SharePoint, all of the samples on anything on SharePoint, including also the BMP components and reusable stuff and all of that stuff. So that's why we call, in our messaging, we're kind of expanding and calling this thing as a SharePoint Dev ecosystem, because we've been asked to take over all of the messaging around SharePoint developer story. Now, welcome on this community call. So this is the typical monthly community call for September 2017. And my name is Vesa Juvonen. I'll start today by having a 15-minute monologue. You can absolutely hit questions on the iron window. I will try to address them. But it's a typical monthly community call, which means that we are pretty busy on covering through the material. And then we have 3 demos today queued up as well. If you have any additional questions or things what you want to ask, please use the iron window. So please do not unmute yourself on this call, so we're able to answer your questions. We do have multiple BMP core team members, both Microsoft employees and MVPs in this call as well. Now, the monthly community call agenda is the typical one. So like mentioned, I'm going to start with 15-minute summary, and I will try to be as fast as possible. So we kind of will walk through what has happened within the SharePoint development guidance sample site across the whole SharePoint development ecosystem. And also some of the statistics, maybe some of the news from the SharePoint engineering perspective. Then we go through the actual contributions in that intro as well. And then we have 3 demos coming up today. So we have a demo from Chris Kent around SharePoint Framework extension. So this is a list view command set extension. We do have a really cool demo from Frank Cornu around the BMP Starter intranet, which is available for you as well, which you can download and set up an intranet for SharePoint Online or SharePoint 2013 or SharePoint 2016. And then we have the last demo of today is from Erwin van Hoonen around the latest changes on the BMP Powershell side. And there was actually significant amount of changes in the BMP Powershell for this month, which I just realized that I didn't update on this presentation, so I do apologize. So we need to skip over on that slide. But if you have a look on the monthly summary in the written format, that is trying to list all of the changes, also including in the BMP PowerShell. And Erwin's going to demonstrate a lot of those things in the demo section. Now, let's actually start moving along within the presentation. So some of the statistics, this is just to let you know how the SharePoint Dev ecosystem is going. So we did have in our YouTube channel around the SharePoint development, we did had a 131 minutes watch time in August, which is pretty humongous number. So there's quite a lot of videos available in the YouTube channel, and people are watching them, also the older videos, and that's why there's so much watch time over there. We did have a 26,000 unique visitors in the GitHub across all of the SharePoint SharePoint GitHub organization, so all of the repositories around SharePoint Framework or all of the BMP repos as well. In the dev.ops.com, we had 455,000 views around the SharePoint development pages and guidance, which is pretty significant number. But that's also because a lot of the old MSDN guidance around the add-ins and all of that stuff and the REST APIs and CSM API usage is now relocated into dev.ops.com. A sneak preview, maybe to mention on that one, we are looking into moving all of our documentation to docs.microsoft.com, which is the new platform, the final platform by end of this month. So hopefully by Ignite, we can get all of the migration finalized, and we can actually get all of our guidance to the final location, so to say, which will be with the docs.microsoft.com/SharePoint. So we get the best possible platform and best possible ways for community to contribute on this documentation as well. On the BMP MSDN, which will be migrated together with the docs.microsoft.com as well, we had 58,000 views, which is pretty significant as well. On the BMP side, so if you think about the classic BMP reusable components, which means the BMP PowerShell, BMP Site Score, or the BMP JavaScript, we had a pretty massive leap on the usage for this month. So the unique tenants jumped actually 2,500 tenants So the increased usage in August was pretty significant. So we're hitting almost 10,000 tenants in a month using the BMP CSAM extensions or the BMP JavaScript or the BMP PowerShell within SharePoint Online. We don't know about the usage in on-premises because we don't have any way of tracking what's the usage in on-premises. The HTTP requests hit 4.2 million, and the most used capability in the BMP was no doubt, once again, the BMP provisioning engine, which is growing, its usage is growing quite significantly. Now, on the summary of things, so what has happened within the last month, within the August, we did have quite a few, or 3 individual webcasts released. We have slightly reduced the cycle on this webcast. We used to ship one webcast in every single week, but that's actually pretty darn difficult to keep up for years and years. So we have now reduced that to be bi-weekly. So our target is to release a webcast in bi-weekly, but then every now and then as needed, we'll have a specific videos going live on YouTube on a specific topics. So most likely later today, there will be interesting announcements on certain things, which I can't say out loud, but there will be a video in the YouTube as an example as part of that release as well. So it's a faster way for us to provide you guidance rather than always waiting for the following Monday with a new webcast. But anyway, so we had integrate client-side web parts properties with SharePoint. We had GDPR Activity Hub, and then programming modern pages as a webcast recording, and those are available in the YouTube videos. On the sample side, the sample usage actually grew more than 20,000 views within the August, which is pretty significant. So it seems to be that more and more people are finding the GitHub and more people are finding the samples and start using them more efficiently. Excuse me. Our old fellow called SharePoint UI Responsive package is still #1 by far, and this is kind of enabling the classic SharePoint to be responsive. It's not a 100% reusable solution. There's always some hiccups here and there because otherwise the classic SharePoint would be natively responsive, but it's a great starting point and it's usually suitable for the maturity of the scenarios. The other thing what we're seeing from the most viewed sample side is that more and more SharePoint framework samples and JavaScript-based customization samples are actually, the usage of them are increasing, which is a great thing because we are heading on that direction. And maybe one other thing to notice here is that the search query tool from Mikael Svensson that has been relocated underneath the BMP umbrella as well from CodePlex, and that's #1 topic on the list as well. It's an awesome tool if you're trying to figure out how to build your queries against the SharePoint search APIs as an example. Nothing that's catastrophic. Other things, I'm just scanning through the list of things. No, it's a relatively typical list of samples on month-by-month basis, what we're seeing within the top list over there. Now, quickly explaining if this is your first time joining on the BMP monthly community call, the BMP monthly community call is here to do a summary what has happened within 1 month, and I'm trying to do that always in 15 minutes, which means that I'm talking quite fast in Finglish, so hopefully you can follow up on what's happening. Now, if you have other questions, or you need help on your SharePoint development things, we have other channels as well. So we do have the SharePoint developer group in the Microsoft Tech community, which is a great forum to ask questions, and there's a lot of active people there helping on the questions as well. You can always CC us on those questions as well, and if we have time, we can absolutely help on your issues as well. We also have 2 bi-weekly ongoing special interest group. So we do have a special interest group for SharePoint framework and JavaScript customization, which is meeting bi-weekly on Thursdays. And then we have a kind of a BMP CSAM, BMP provisioning, BMP PowerShell special interest groups also meeting bi-weekly on Thursdays. So basically we have a weekly community call around the BMP, but the topic is always flipping between bi-weekly between these 2 groups. And then if you don't have time to join on those groups and those meetings, you can always join to this monthly community call to get a summary on what has happened around the SharePoint development all in all within the previous month. Good. September 2017 released SPFX samples. So on SPFX side, we didn't have a massive amount of new samples. I think people are aware that we're looking into releasing, there might be or might not be additional releases pretty soon on the SharePoint framework, and people are waiting for the updates on the platform as well. SharePoint framework client-side web mods are absolutely already G8, and the extensions are going to be G8 relatively soon as well. And for this month, we had a few different web contact samples coming in, and also a few different extensions. I'm not going to go through these one by one because unfortunately it takes too much time. On the samples and guidance, Frank Cornu updated his business starter intranet solution, which is absolutely brilliant generic solution for enterprise intranet publishing. So it's based on the classic publishing scenarios, and it's compatible with SharePoint 2013, 2016, and SharePoint Online. And it actually uses web stack development and all of that. And Frank is going to demonstrate that later today in this call to walk through what has been updated on the v2.0 release on that one. On the guidance side, we had updates mainly on the SharePoint framework side. So we did have an updated set of tutorials, for example, for SharePoint framework extensions, which will relatively soon go GA. So we're able to do, let's say, more comprehensive customizations on the modern SharePoint in SharePoint Online as well. And we did have quite a lot of videos coming up on this month as well. So we did have also for the SharePoint framework extensions, we did release a set of videos and then additional videos on the other topics as well. Now, on this slide, I do apologize. I just realized this when I started talking that I did not update the slide. So this is actually has not been updated, and that's why I pasted in the IM window link, and I do apologize on this. There's significant amount of changes on the BMP Powershell and the CSM object for this month, and main changes are around the fact that we support now, or we have full support for the 2017-05 provisioning schema in the CSM and in the PowerShell. And what it means is that we support basically the modern customization or modern sites more natively within the provisioning engine. And that's going to help people, no doubt, to, for example, push SharePoint framework customizations on modern sites, or modify the modern sites, modify the changes on them. And there's a lot of other modifications and improvements on both the core component and in the BMP PowerShell, based on the contribution from the core team and also from a community side. On the BMP JS core side, there will be a new version coming up relatively soon, later this month, which will have a significant improvements as well. And that's listed in the monthly release notes as well. I unfortunately, like mentioned, I didn't update this slide, and I do apologize on that. Now, other things. This one I did update. So we did have, once again, quite a significant list of people contributing and helping each other in the community. So we absolutely value your contributions, and we absolutely want to help you and we absolutely want you to be able to do this in the future as well. Because the whole SharePoint community is dependent on the community people to actually share and being successful by sharing their learnings between each other. And that's the whole point of the SharePoint BMP, and that's the whole power of the SharePoint community. SharePoint community is actually being a lot of the other organizations like Microsoft Teams or Office Client or even Visual Studio guys, they're pretty jealous actually on the SharePoint ecosystem and the SharePoint community, and how the community is active from a SharePoint Saturdays perspective, and also by contributing their learnings between each other. So thank you very much. I'm not going to mention all of you one by one. I do apologize on that one as well, but there's such a significant amount of people actually working together with us on helping to make this happen. On the company side, so those people in the previous list, for those people, some people have given us the permissions to show their company logo as well. And this is the list of companies from where people were actually working. So essentially, these are the companies who gave their employees permissions to use their time to help each other of the community and help other people in the community to be successful. And we absolutely appreciate this assistance, and absolutely appreciate the opportunity for these companies' employees to help others in the community as well. And to be fair, this is probably the biggest company list what we have had in the history of SharePoint SharePoint BMP monthly calls. Now, on the Microsoft side, relatively typical list of people. So it's quite often the same people. These are SharePoint engineering people, SharePoint service engineering people, and also SharePoint our field consultants who are helping us from the Microsoft side as well. So thank you very much for your contributions around what we're doing here together. Now, let's move on the demos, and I'm hitting actually on the minute, which is pretty rare. And that's why I was speaking so fast, and I do apologize on that one as well. But we wanted to actually have 3 demos this week, so we have 15 minutes for every single demo. If we do have extra time in the end, we can do Q&A on random whatever topics on the SharePoint development area, if there's time. But if Frank, if you don't mind, if we start with you, and let's have a look on the updates on the BMP Starter intranet, and then we'll move to Chris, and then we'll move to Erwin after that. Would that work, Frank?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, all good, all good.
Okay, okay, we share my screen.
Yes.
Let me know when it is okay.
And did yes, I misspelled your last name. Oh, Frank, by the way, now you sound like a Darth Vader. The microphone is way too close here. Breathing.
It's okay now?
Much better, yes. Good.
Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Frank Carneux. I'm Office 365 SharePoint consultant and founder of my own company called Ecos, and also Office Development MVP. Today I will show you the latest update of the PnP Starter Intranet solution. So this is the V2. First of all, this demo will be more focused on technical aspects rather than functional. I think there will be a dedicated webcast to present all new feature more from a functional point of view. So this is more a technical demo here. So can you see my screen? It's okay?
Yep, all good, all good.
Okay, good. So the most important update is the design. So this is the new solution design. Actually, this version is very special because it comes directly from one of our customer who accepted to share his intranet design with the SharePoint community. So this is actually a real intranet used by real people. So you can see the design. It was made by a professional firm, so it is a real design. And this solution, as usual, is totally free, so you can use it. You can use it for free. So the main update is about the design. There is a dedicated design for the home page and for the other page as well. So you can see the home page here. You have few components here, like a carousel. Very generic. You have a news, events, and so on. And the design of other pages is a little bit different of the welcome page. So as usual, there are some navigation menu all driven by taxonomy. So you have the main menu here. You have also header links here, the search box here. You have footer and social media links. So all those menus are totally customizable. So it's driven by taxonomy, so you can put what you want according to your needs. This version is also compatible with mobile devices. So you can see the design has been real improved. So I used Bootstrap to implement this version, and as you can expect, this is a custom master page. So so this is not I didn't use JavaScript injection on something like that. It is a real custom master page. So it is totally responsive. So you can use it with mobile devices. The search experience has been also improved. So now you have 3 categories. Those categories can be driven by the search setting of the site. So here you can see you have the internet, document, and people categories. You can configure it with the search settings. So you can go here and just edit your settings to according to your needs. I go back, just a quick overview of the search. So you have a new refinement system, horizontal rather than vertical, so you can filter on them. You have also that refinement. You have also a people directory now. By tiles, so very classic people directory. So this is a quick overview of the solution. Like I said, there will be a dedicated webcast to explain all those features. So from a technical aspect, the updates are more, I will explain the updates. So first of all, the deployment procedure. So to deploy this solution, it's not complicated. You have just to call the script with your credential and your URL, and that's it. You will see all the detail of the procedure. The installation takes about 20 minutes, depending your bandwidth, so it's pretty quick. So the solution works with SharePoint 2013, 2016, and online with the same code base. So you don't have to expect the PnP Powershell commandlets. You don't have to update the solution according to your target platform. So this is very, very simple. Another thing is now you can deploy the solution using just one language or multiple languages. By default, the solution comes with 2 languages, which are English and French. But now you can customize the solution to only deploy one language or multiple languages. There is a configuration file, a configuration scripts, then you can where you can configure your language settings. So here you can see the French and English. But for example, if you just want just one language, just remove this part and deploy with the English settings. So this is a big improvement. So from a SharePoint point of view, there are now one subsite by language. So you can see here the English subsite. So there is one subsite per language, like variations do. We do this to benefit of the MUI of SharePoint. So with this mechanism, you can now add web parts on your pages, and the language of the web part will follow. Because previously in the V1 solution, we used just one site, so we had problem with web part languages. So now one subsite for one language. You have also the translation system with between the subsites. From code point of view, so I reorganize the structure to be more, let's say, functional per component organization. So in the solution, as a reminder, I use the knockout JS component binding pattern. So for your information, this is the same pattern used in the SharePoint framework when you select the React template, the knockout JS template. So by this way, you can just create your own component very easily, because this is the same pattern. So you have the name of the component, an HTML view, CSS, and the logic of the component, and then just register this component on the main script to work. So this is a very simple structure. You can add your own component. This is totally a client-side solution, so there is no server-side dependencies. So you can deploy it in a new site collection without conflict with other site collection, search settings, or taxonomy. So the solution is very isolated. So it is customizable. You can add your own components and so on. Next, from performance point of view, small updates here. We have, for taxonomy menus, for navigation menus, all the menus are stored in the local storage of the browser. So if you go here, you will see you have all the nodes stored in the local storage for performances purpose. This is the same for the configuration list. We have a lot of components on the page. Each component call a configuration list to get their settings. But to improve performances, we have also cached the configuration list values using the SP PnP GS feature. So I can show you here. You can just use this simple line of code to store the query result in the local storage. So very convenient way to use the caching. So this is about performances. So another things we did, nice feature, like for example, when you click on an event, you can now add this event to your calendar. In Outlook. So, for instance, I could just click on this event and then have the event generated automatically. I don't think. Oh, sorry. So you have automatically we extract the content of the event, the start time and end time, and so on. So you can just add it to your calendar. A very handy feature. So this is a solution, a very simple solution. As I said, you can just customize it. By default, it's fully functional. You don't have you can just use this solution and make no modification on it. You can just use it. If you know a bit SharePoint, you can update it by, for example, create new display templates and so on. For instance, all those components in the page are driven by display templates, so you can just add your own display templates and so on. In the solution, we have default display templates. For example, if I go here, we have different display templates that you can use, but you can also create your own. Not very difficult. This is SharePoint behind the solution. We try to leverage all the SharePoint feature, so we don't reinvent the wheel, if I can say. So this is all the SharePoint behind, all the UI, only the UI and some very specialized component have been created for this intranet. So basically this is SharePoint. I think this is really it for technical demo. Like I said, there will be a dedicated webcast more focused on functional aspects. So
yes.
If you have questions, let me know.
Now, Frank, few questions on the, and I do apologize one more time for misspelling your last name, but a few questions on just to clarify the implementation for the audience as well. So obviously this is so-called classic publishing site, isn't it? So it is supporting publishing, so just to clarify that. The same publishing is available in SharePoint Online. There is no such thing as modern publishing for time being. So yes, communication sites are there, but communication sites are, their customization story is super limited, at least for time being. So if you really want to have, let's say, a fully flexible corporate intranet, which has a fully flexible branding, the classic publishing sites absolutely supported, will be supported in future as well. So from that perspective. Now, From a responsive perspective, you are using a custom master page. It's not necessarily always the best option, but then again, then you have a full control on what's getting rendered. It is debatable.
If I can say a word on this, because the question is good. Honestly, if you want to do this kind of design, you can just use JavaScript injection. It's just not possible, I think. Yes. You can just do this.
Yeah, I do agree on that.
This is the main reason. For SharePoint 2013 and 2016, I think it's okay, but on SharePoint Online, maybe you can use the communication side instead of this kind of solution, maybe.
Yeah, as long as we enable some additional extensibility points there. But good. But that probably clarifies some of the discussions and questions on the ION window. Are there any concerns about requiring publishing and the classic UI? Well, it is again debatable. So obviously, in SharePoint Online, you can control that all of the, let's say, for example, all of the team sites and collaboration sites would be using the modern UIs, and then your corporate intranet would be using the classic publishing. That's one option. All of those settings are available to be controlled by the tenant admin. There is no, let's say, there's no direct replacement of the classic publishing, WCM publishing, in the modern experiences for time being, because you can actually do such a significant amount of things in the classic publishing, which you cannot yet at least do in the let's say the modern UIs, and that's why quite often people actually use the classic publishing still, like in this case, and it's an awesome looking site. So, and just out of so this one, just out of curiosity, by the way, Frank, you probably mentioned that this is now running in SharePoint 2013 or SharePoint 2016 mode, just out of curiosity.
Now you have the version of SharePoint 2013 now, but I can show you this is the same thing. You have the SharePoint Online version. This is basically this is the same.
Yes. Okay. Cool. Good. I think that covers the random question which arrived on the ION window. So let's do this. Like Frank mentioned, we're going to do a separate webcast around this one from a functionality perspective, and we're going to talk about the business value and all of that and the design practices within that webcast. But let's flip on Chris, and then after Chris, we have Erwin on the demo. So Chris, you are presenter. Your time. If we can, Chris. If you can, there we go. Excellent, you're there. Cool.
Button apparently. All right. Can you guys see the screen there?
Loading 3 dots. One more second. It's probably coming pretty soon. If I get it, then it's there we go. There's the.
Okay.
All good.
So my name is Chris Kent. I'm the SharePoint practice lead for DMI. There's my Twitter, my blog. Have at it. Feel free to reach out with any questions or anything. Anytime? All right. So I'm going to talk about a SharePoint framework extension, specifically a list view command set. So just kind of set the base for that. As a reminder, what a list view command set is, it adds one or more commands to a modern list view. I know that's a shocking thing for the name there. And really, you can do that in a couple of locations. So you can do that in the context menu, you can do it on the command bar, or you can do both. And you just specify that using the location property of your custom action. So that's actually not part of your code. You'll do that during the deployment. All right. So specifically, though, I want to talk about the JS command clone. So that's the sample that we're going to show off today. That is available in the SPDev FX extensions GitHub samples repo. There's a bunch of stuff in there. Check all those out. But this specific one, the link there is on the bottom of the slide. So some of the main things this sample demonstrates is loading PnP JS core from a CDN, which you should always do in your SharePoint framework packages. It's going to conditionally show based on the number of your selected rows, and also the user's permission levels. So we only want to show the command, right? If we actually have anything we can work on, and also if the user, that's taking a look at this, can do what we want them to do. And finally, we're really going to take advantage of the PnP JS core's batching. Obviously, you can do that without that, but with JS Core, it is so much simpler. We're going to do that both to get a bunch of items and to add a bunch of items, and you'll see that it's really easy to do that. And then finally, we're going to demonstrate how to do some field-specific formats for REST operations. There's just some manipulation you've got to do when you get those items back from a list. in order to add those to a list. So we'll take a look at that. All right, so let's actually see some code here, or some sample, not the code. All right, so I'll refresh this. And I just got a simple list view here. I'm going to load the debug scripts, right, which is how we get this stuff on there. I've got the query string up here that's saying where everything is. And if you take a look here at the very end, this is where I've got my location set. And with that, I've got that set to use both the command bar and the context menu. So when I right-click this guy, I get a clone button down here, but I also get a clone button up here. So the way this works is I've been frustrated for years at the ability, default values for list items are great, but oftentimes you've got, one or more list items that you've got them, all the fields configured the way you want, especially if you've got a lot of fields on there, and you just want to copy them so you can tweak a couple things. That's what this does. So I can hit this clone button on our sheep here. And here we go. Just going to refresh the page. I'm going to load the debug scripts, and I've got 2 sheep. How exciting. All right. I can also grab a couple here, and I can clone both of them at once. So we'll take a look at that. Now, one of the key things is we're not just doing a picture and a title here. If we actually take a look at one of our new cloned items, all right, and we're going to edit that guy. You can actually see that we have just about every field type on here, right? And it's cloning all of those values. So you can see we've got, single person, multiple people, multi-choice. We've even got taxonomy fields down here, multiple taxonomy, rich text. All that stuff gets cloned with everything else. All right. So that's what we're doing here. Very exciting stuff. You can have all the sheep you want. All right. So if we take a look back here, what's really happening kind of behind the scenes, the code flow here is we load the PnP library from a CDN. Again, that's been done in your config.json file. So it's not really a part of the code. The kind of key difference there is that when you do that, you still install the PnP.js module. You're just going to do that as a dev dependency. All right. And then when you've got a list view command set, you really have 3 methods that you're going to override, right? You've got your init, you've got your list view updated, and obviously the execution where your real logic happens. So for the clone command set, on the initialization, we're gonna build this library of field exclusions, and really all that is a list of strings that we match up against our fields, so that we don't end up copying things like the internal version, the moderation status, right? Any computed or calculated fields, any projected fields off of lookup. So we kind of just use this to exclude all of that, and then finally we're going to initialize the PnP.js core. This is something with SharePoint Framework you're going to need to do. It's really easy. You can literally cut and paste to put this in there, but it just sets that SPFX context object or value there. And then finally, we get this on list view updated. And what happens there is we're just going to retrieve the command, and we're going to set the visibility based on both the selected rows, right? Make sure we've got at least one, and the current user has the add list items permission. You'll see this is all a single line of code. It's really easy to do. And then when our actual command gets called in our onExecute function, we're going to first ensure the list scheme is. So this just goes and retrieves from the fields endpoint of the list to get all of the fields that are on there. And then we're going to filter those out using those field exclusions to just get the ones that matter. And then we're going to batch those up. So we're going to get each of the selected items. We're going to get all those field values. We're going to use the expand where necessary, right? So that's on user fields, right? Lookups, all that stuff. And then we're going to batch that all up so we get those all in a single request no matter how many items they selected. Then we're going to translate those resolved values to be used for the adding. There's just a couple of minor things you have to do. It's a bit of a quirk with the SharePoint REST API. For instance, you've got to add a results array for multi-users, that kind of thing. Okay, and then we're going to add copies of each of those selected items, again, batching those. So it goes much quicker than if you were trying to do that one after another. And finally, we're going to refresh the whole page. And right now we're doing that because there isn't a way to just refresh the list view. We have actually an issue on that. And I was told that that's something that's potentially coming, unless I'm stating that wrong and anybody wants to jump in and correct me on that. But we certainly want that. All right. And then, of course, you're going to behold the power of science. All right. That's it. That's the whole thing. If you have any questions, reach out. Take a look. Run the thing. Make some sheep.
Thanks, Chris. I'm just double checking. Do you have the code, by the way, there as well? Just. I'm not saying that we need to, but we have like for 4 minutes. I'm just quickly pinpointing.
Yeah, that's what code is for.
Because it actually, I think that one of the things what the code, which is awesome within the code, this shows the BMP.js core at its best as well, because it's such a great library to simplify the code, right?
Mm-hmm. So you look here at the code. Here again, we've got that build exclusions. This is our on init method, right? This is that PnP initialization. Again, just cut and paste this right into your on init event. Really easy to do. It just sets that context. But down here, this is where we set that command visibility. So you can see we've got this event.selectedRows property, which is just an array, super easy to compare against. All right, and then over here in your page context, you actually have the permissions of the current user, and you can check has permissions, and you just ask, do they have at least add list items there? And so just using that, we can set that visibility really easy. So down here in the on execute event, this is where we start to see some of that PnP.js core magic. So we create this batch. Again, pretty complicated there, right? Which is called the create batch. And then down here, we're going to do we're just mapping a few things to see what we have to expand. If we take a look here, we loop through those selected rows, and we just come here, and we get the item by ID, right over here, and then we're going to grab all those field names we want, all those expansions we want that we built up above, and we put it in a batch. So we just assign it to that item batch, and then we get it. And then what that does is then down here, we can actually execute that batch. So we just execute it, and as soon as it comes back, we come here, we're going to create another batch, which is just going to be for cloning. And here, that's where we're going to add each of those items in here. So you can see we're going to do items in batch.add. So again, super simple. I didn't have to know all those REST endpoints, right? I didn't have to do a bunch of string concatenation. I can just literally do pnp.sp.web.list, which is far easier. It really brings in the power of TypeScript and checking here, rather than finding out later that you misspelled, you forgot your underscore and underscore API or anything else when you're doing string concatenation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. That's exactly what I was looking for as well. And really, you would probably agree, Chris, on this one. That if you are a classic SharePoint developer moving into the JavaScript side, this will help you to get there because you don't have to understand, let's say, the REST API calls or anything like that. You can just do pnp.sp.web.list and all of that. So
it's awesome.
Excellent. Thanks for the feedback as well. Patrick is super happy on the Iron window as well. And let's flip then on Irvin to a completely different world, right, Irvin?
Completely different.
Yes. Because unless you kind of call JavaScript from your PowerShell, we'll see.
Ooh, tempting. Tempting.
Cool. But let's go to the BMP Powershell. It's actually super interesting to see. Obviously, the JavaScript core is increasing usage all the time. There's a massive interest on that one. But also BMP Powershell is increasing usage all the time as well. So IT pros and for the management side, people are using more and more the PowerShell as well. But Irvin, feel free to do the sharing and get the screen from Chris.
I was okay. It disconnected. It's trying to reconnect now.
Okay.
I'm actually still seeing Chris's desktop
as well. So Chris, be aware. We can see what you're having on your desktop. No, we got it. Okay, cool. Now we've flipped on.
Yeah. So PowerShell has been growing and growing and growing and growing in commandlets actually. So if we check how many commandlets we have nowadays, it's there's still some slides hanging around here on the internet. We have like more than 200. But if we check here, SharePoint PnP, I should have come up with a shorter name, but PowerShell Online. There we have all the commandlets. Just a quick and dirty trick here. 241 nowadays, which is quite a list. Of course, there is a bit less commandlets for on-prem, but the majority of the commandlets work both on-prem and in the cloud. Right, so what has happened? Quite a lot of internal fixing, changing, documentation changes, typos that we fixed. But there's a couple of new things I want to go through. And the first topic is records management that we released pretty recently. It was already in the last month released, but it's still interesting to see how that works. So in order to enable records management, you have to activate a feature. And we have a commandlet for that one now that makes life a bit easier. You don't have to remember the feature in the ID, and that's set in place records management on. And I realized when I started to work with that one, that actually doesn't do a couple of things. It just activates the feature. But if you want to declare a record from PowerShell, you will actually have to tell in the site settings that it's okay to do that. So this is the current state. You activate the feature. And then if you navigate to the site, we go here and show you the site. There's the site. And I go to site settings and go to record declaration settings here. I think I clicked on it. No, my site is completely not responding.
It's a hardware issue, right?
It probably is a hardware issue. Yeah. There we go. You have to make sure that the manual record declaration is turned on, available in all locations by default. This is the standard. It's like off, like here. So turn that one on. That is the way it works today. If you get the latest build of PowerShell that we released last Friday, if from next month, small sneak preview. There is an easier way of doing it, and that is enable PnP in place records management for site. If you run this one, it will activate the feature and turn that manual thing on for you. And there is a corresponding commandlet being disable. So you can turn it on. So enable, disable will do the whole thing for you. So you don't have to go in and click and whatever. But if you just want the feature, if that is interesting for you, set PnP in place record management on or off to activate or deactivate that feature. So now it's on. Let me double check now again that I actually made the correct setting. There, it's available. That was already the default as it was set. So it remembers that. If I have a document library here, if we go here, document library, there's a single document in there. So declaring this document as a record is very simple. It's basically setting set PnP list item as record, which list documents, ID of the item. Does a bit, doing some calls behind the scenes. There we go. And if we now open, look at the properties of this item, we go to the compliance details. It is probably a hardware issue.
Yeah, it's weirdly slow. We can't play.
It is weirdly slow. There we go. There we go. It's hard. It's difficult to see, but there you see declared record today. You can also undeclare the record here. But if I want to take the record away here, then I say clear PnP list item as record, list documents, identity one. And it will take away. It will unclear it. There are some more properties or attributes or parameters on the commandlet, and then I urge you to check them out and see what you can do with it, because you said also some status message and that kind of thing. So very simple to declare and undeclare an item as a record. Very simple, very straightforward. So that was records management. There are a couple of other commandlets that we introduced since last Friday, or not since the last build, so that is basically out there in the wild right now. If you want to check them out, one that was actually missing for like basically day one, and for some reason it never ended up in being there, is set PnP field to actually change properties of a current field. So the way it works is you say whatever list, what fields, and then you have values. And here you can say, so the JS link here equals, and this is my URL if you insist on still using JSLink. But this is a way of setting a property on a field. Very straightforward, very simple to use. Then another one is remove PnP user, which will actually remove the user from the site user list, site user info list. So it will actually, you have several ways of picking a user here, but very simple to do. Another change we made is actually something that was annoying, and it took me a while to figure out what was going on there, but that had to happen, and maybe you ran into it. It's like, did you got an exception? The pipeline has been stopped, and that was especially when you wanted to output the results of a commandlet to another, let's say, built-in commandlet. And I'll show you the example, not the error, but the error is gone now, but I'll show you an example of where you can use that. So if I do get PnP list item, I have to type the right thing, item list demo, this list contains like 30 items. And I press enter, I will get all 30 items on my screen. Bang. But say if I want only the first 5, then it's very simple, say select first 5. Oh, now I did 54, first 5. And we get the first 5 items. I can also say skip the first 5 and then take the first 5. So then it starts at 6, 7, 8. So it's a very easy way to create like page results if you want to do that. You have to understand how it works. What basically happens is the select statement is a built-in PowerShell commandlet. What it does, it starts to read item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then it realizes it has to output like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then it stops the output. So it will go first through the first items in front of the items where you want to start, and then it executes the number of items, or shows the number of items you want to return, and then it stops the execution of the commandlet. So it doesn't retrieve all other 30 items or 20 or whatever, or 5,000 items, or how many items you have in the list. But this was not possible until the current release. You got a pipeline stopped error message here. So it's good to know that that works now. Quite nice, I think. So the last topic is client-side pages or modern pages. And we have now commandlets for those too. So if I go to my site again, and I go to my pages library, then if I want to create a new modern page in here, I can obviously click here, or a client-side page. But in this case, that's the wrong PowerShell. Take this. It was the right PowerShell. I was disconnected. Okay, let me reconnect to the site. Office 365 is slow today. At least for me it is. There we go. So adding a new page, add PnP client-side page, name, demo. Then you have layout type, article, home. Let's go for article. And you press enter. And this will add the page. There we go, the page come back. So you can actually potentially put it into a variable if you want to, like that, and then use that that variable and do things with it. But if I reload this now, there's my demo page. So if I open this page to show you what's in there, zoom out a bit. There's no text, nothing in there. It just says demo, of course. So if I want to add some text in there, I can say add PnP client-side text. Page demo text and put it in quotes, hello PnP. And obviously there will be text now. If the page reloads. There we go. There's my text. Same way, you add sections, PnP client-side page section. Long command names, unfortunately, but section template 2-column, and we'll add a new section to it. Now, if I want to add a web part to say the second section, because the first section is now created, it added a new section, so I can say add PnP client-side web part page demo. Page demo, default web port height. I want a Bing map in there. and then the section, the second section, and in the right, the second column of the second section. Press enter. And reload this page. There we see that it added a section. If I go to edit this page, you will actually see that this is the first section, this is the second section, and I added that web part to the second section here. So it's very simple now with PowerShell to add and remove or add components to a page and add a layout and do things with it, etc., etc., etc. So this is the current state. This is a high-level overview of what changed. There's many more things that changed in the commandlets, but it goes too long for the time to go through all the differences and all the changes and updates. As I said, a lot of stuff happened on the inside of the commandlets. That was it for me.
Thank you, Erwin, for that one. Really great job on the, and always like really great job for everybody who's contributing on this.
Exactly. Well. It was absolutely not just me that built it.
Yes.
Absolutely not. No.
Yes. So there's like tens and tens of people behind of the BMP PowerShell. Well, to be fair, Erwin, it's fair to say that you are the father of the BMP PowerShell because you created the original setup. And
you said it again.
Yes, I did say it again. Thing. Yes. Or I can call you a grandpa as well because that.
Thank you.
Because you like that, right? Good. But I think we have 4 minutes time. If there's any random questions, I'm going to jump into the last slide because apparently, there we go. Now I'm on the Q&A. No, on the slides. There we go. If there's any random questions on the topics which went through towards Frank or Chris or Erwin or anything related on SharePoint development, more than happy to answer any questions from an engineering perspective or anything from a community perspective. Maybe one thing to notice on Erwin's demo as well, because people don't necessarily always understand the power of the BMP PowerShell. These are not only for IT pros. Quite often, actually, developers use them in Azure Functions, as an example, to manipulate stuff in SharePoint Online, because you can easily do and modify your scripts as if they're PowerShell rather than compiled code. There's advantages and disadvantages in both sides. But I think if there's no specific questions or anything what we should address, there's great demos and great input on the Iron window. If you're interested on exact details what was released, please go through to our monthly release notes. That's in dev.office.com. I'll paste in the link in the Iron window one more time. We have a massive list of things what has happened in the SharePoint development side, and there's a lot of new stuff coming on the upcoming month as well. We do have Ignite coming up within a few months in Orlando. It seems to be that regardless of the hurricane hit within yesterday and the weekend, Orlando is still on, and we will have a PnP booth as an example in the Orlando. So if you're coming to Ignite, please drop by, have a set of questions available. We'll be there to help you on your technical things. And please drop by in our SharePoint development sessions as well. But I don't think there's any other questions. So thank you everybody for joining. We'll get the recording of this community call to the YouTube channel within 24 hours. So it will be available tomorrow in the BMP YouTube channel. So thank you everybody for joining. Thank you everybody for your contributions. Hopefully we'll see you in Ignite. If we don't see you in Ignite, please give us feedback, give us input also using the other social media channels. Thank you. And thank you for the presenters and the demo presenters as well. Thank you. Bye-bye.